Have you ever failed a written exam or a flight test? Are you worried that when you get to the interview at a big company, they're going to ask you about that failure and they're going to disqualify you from it? And the answer is no. I've actually had a couple of students who, when I was doing the interview prep course with them, they mentioned that when their own flight training, they've had some setbacks and they were actually brought up this question and they were worried. And what I told them is exactly what I'm going to tell you today, is that employers do not actually care that you've either failed a written exam or not. What they really care is that, are you going to lie to them? Are you going to hide that failure? What they really want to see is that you own up to that setback and talk more importantly about what you learned from it. For example, in my own flight training career, the only time I ever partialed a flight test or ever had a setback was during my private pilot training. I partialed my PPL flight test. It's because I chose to go flying during a really hazy day and I partialed the navigation portion, the low-level nav. Of course I did. It makes sense. I couldn't really see outside very far. I shouldn't have gone flying that day, but the examiner decided to allow me to be the PIC and I made a poor decision at that time. So I mentioned that during the interview when I got hired. I said, this is what happened during my flight test. This is what I learned from it. And what I did was, after that flight test, I went up with my instructor a couple of times. I did more low-level diversions. I got my skill up to a much higher level, and then I passed the flight test. And then later on, a couple of years later, when I myself became a flight instructor, I knew exactly what to watch out with low-level navigation, and especially conditions that are ideal for the flight test. And because I imparted my lessons onto my students never made the same mistake. And they ended up getting a much, much higher score than I did and passed on the first try because of my teachings. So in all, this experience actually benefited not only me, but my future students as well. And that's all you have to tell the interviewer. Just own up to your mistake and tell the interviewer how you'll learn from it. And that's all they want to see. Do your best on your next interview, own up to it, and you'll be okay.